Hello, my name is Sarah and this is my video for sleeping warm and dressing for success in the outdoors. So cool, fun thing to start off with. The American Survival Guide says that the key to staying warm is keeping cold, C-O-L-D. And so that basically means C is for keeping yourself clean so your body can whisk away dead skin cells and heat and all that jazz. Keeping your clothes clean or starting out with clean clothes so they can do their job, because wet clothes tend not to function as well, and that's something we'll get into a little bit later. O stands for don't overexert yourself, or if you are exerting a lot of energy, make sure you are removing layers and allowing your body to release heat so that you're not sweating and soaking your clothes. L, layers, very important, something else we'll get into. And D stands for staying dry. And so this means having proper layers that work well when wet, that keep you from getting super soaked in sweat, basically. Replacing damp socks at the end of the day. Also, keeping your materials dry, keeping your clothes dry when they're in your backpack. So putting like a trash bag in there works pretty well. I know some people have covers for it, whatever works, just staying dry. And we will also talk about what to do in the event that you can't, or you're not dry, you got wet somehow. Okay, so next on to layering. Before I start talking about different layers, cotton is generally a no-go for layers, basically because cotton tends to absorb a lot of water, and so if you are sweating and exerting yourself and then suddenly become stationary and you sweat a lot in your clothing and it's damp, or it got damp from the rain or something like that, and you're staying still, you are now wet and you are getting cold. So cotton is not a great layer to have in the outdoors, although it is pretty comfortable for wearing in everyday life. So start with your base layer. I don't have my normal t-shirt, but a base layer can be anything. This material, like a lightweight material, this is polyester, I believe. So polyester, nylon works great. A light merino wool is good. Silk is good, although a little more expensive. So just like a lightweight base layer that you can have on your body. Second is your mid layer, and so materials for these are nylon, merino wool, polyester. These are all good. These are good at wicking moisture and drying relatively quickly. So I have this shirt that I wear that's like a lightweight wool. Can you call it a flannel if it's wool? I don't know. But there's that. And then depending on the conditions, if you're going out in the summer, you might not need heavy wool, where you might just want some polyester or nylon mid-layer materials. And then insulating layer materials, so like an outer layer, always good to have. Like a puffy jacket, I have this North Face one. Wool is again good, down is good. This is synthetic materials. The problem that you can encounter with down may be that when down gets wet, it deflates and loses a lot of, or not deflates, but it kind of gets smushed and it's not puffy anymore, and it loses a lot of its ability to keep in heat. So something else to keep in mind. I know people have been wearing like heavy wool sweaters for a long time. If you're hiking in the summer and you don't want all this wool, just making sure that your layers are synthetic materials and you're basically just wearing layers appropriately. So for the fourth layer, it's basically your shell, and so this is a water resistant or preferably waterproof, breathable material. I have here like a Helly Hansen soft shell rain jacket that has kept me dry in Washington backcountry. So that's pretty important. And there's soft shell and hard shell, like a hard shell like classic Gore-Tex rain gear. both are good. Gore-Tex is generally pretty breathable. Hard shell tends to be a little bit more restrictive, so it's kind of just a personal preference, soft shell or hard shell. So I think that's everything for the layers. Oh, and making sure you're covering your extremities. If it's cold out, bring a hat, bring your covers, bring gloves, all that jazz. Proper hiking socks. Smartwool, usually pretty good for that, keeping your feet pretty dry, not overheating, things like that. And so basically the key with layering is you don't want one, or like you don't want two like heavy layers, you want a few lightweight layers that you can take on and off as conditions change, as your level of activity changes. So for sleeping, you obviously want a good sleeping bag. I'm not going to take it all the way out, but I have one of the Mummy ones that we all know and love, that keeps me pretty warm. It's rated for below freezing temperatures. You can also have a sleeping bag liner. These can add between 5 and 15 degrees of extra warmth. So that'll keep you pretty warm. Also making sure that you have something underneath you for insulation, so you're not just sleeping on the ground and your body heat is not escaping into the ground. Having an inflatable pad is pretty good. Yoga mats work okay, things like that. Again, going back to the original, making sure your things are dry. Sleeping bag liner, making sure, or not a sleeping bag liner, a backpack liner, like a trash bag in there if it's wet or the conditions are going to be wet. Important for keeping your sleeping bag and all your clothes dry. Also making sure you have dry socks if you choose to sleep in socks. And if you do choose to sleep in socks, making sure that those socks are loose and not tight. I find with me, Smartwool socks are not good to sleep in because they're tight. So looser socks work for me to keep my feet warm. Or, if you prefer no socks, go no socks. Also trying to minimize extra space in your sleeping bag is important. So if you have like a chunk of extra space at the end, your sleeping bag is a little too long, shoving some clothes down there, so that your body heat will warm those up and you're not having like cold air pockets. Making sure that, there aren't pockets of like crumpled up material in your sleeping bag as well, so like shaking it out when you get in, like kicking your legs around to kind of move it around your body in a good, secure, and warm fashion. So that's just about everything for layering and sleeping warm. Final thing is, in the event that you do get wet, as happens a lot here in Washington, just making sure that you are planning ahead and you are bringing proper materials. Don't show up with all cotton layers, especially on your bottom. Oh, I forgot to show bottom layers. We're obviously going to be wearing pants. So I have these hiking pants, pretty standard. They are synthetic material. They are a little moisture wicking. They also keep me pretty warm in colder weather, cloudy, windy days. For the summer, I tend to just like wearing like polyester shorts with a mesh liner. Those work pretty well. For really cold weather, long underwear works. I know like the brand I have is like Hot Chilies or something. Yeah, but again, all of these materials are not cotton, and if they do get wet, especially synthetic materials like polypropylene and polyester will continue to try and wick moisture. They evaporate pretty quickly. Moisture evaporates pretty quickly, and they tend to keep you much warmer. And wool, again, you've all heard wool keeps you warm even when it is wet. Obviously, when it's soaking wet, it's not going to keep you too warm, so making sure you have a good shell, making sure that when you buy your material, which you can buy at Army surplus stores, life hack for a little less expensive route, making sure that those layers are waterproof. Obviously, nothing is going to keep you completely dry when you're out in backcountry, out in the elements, but staying as dry as possible, making sure that you are insulated, you are layered, you are keeping the things within your backpack dry, and in the event that you do get wet, having some extra socks on hand, or another extra pair of socks on hand, even if it ends up being your sleeping socks. And yeah, I think that's just about everything. So good luck out in backcountry.